So we know that victim mentality can be very hampering, can be very damaging, not just to you, but to everybody else around you, really. So today I want to talk to you about 5 areas that you can really start to switch that mentality. And we're going to go into the mentality a little bit, but also giving you a little bit of peace and help there to let you know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Welcome to episode 108 of the Positivity Experience, Reprogramming the Victim Mentality. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to episode 108 of the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and man, it is already, like I said, we're almost through the first month of the year. Isn't that crazy how time goes by so quick? So first, I want to give a massive shout out to all of the newest Patreon subscribers. You guys had a really good feedback on last week's episode, and you liked the worksheet. So I did it again this week, and it's only going to be when it's applicable. But we're talking about why you stay in relationships that really aren't good for you or that you don't feel fulfilled in. And there's a worksheet that goes with it. So if you're on the Patreon, make sure that you download that worksheet too. It doesn't go in conjunction with the podcast. It's for you to do after. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, that's what it is. And if you're interested in becoming one, you can either visit me at patreon.com/the positivity experience, or you can just go anywhere that you're getting this podcast right now, and you'll see a link to it if that's what you choose. But that is a subscription. So that is what we're talking about over there. But there's a reason I put that there is because it goes hand in hand. Staying in relationships and stuff like that goes also hand in hand with this victim mentality. I'm telling you, it is a massive foundation of my own healing and the healing of my clients. And I got to tell you, and it's so funny, I literally am writing this in the book. God, the amount of victim mentality, like I said, who I was growing up and going through all of that, I probably coined the phrase victim mentality. It's probably like you could look and be like, oh, that was Lori. So this isn't abnormal. It's not for you to judge yourself. Okay. It's not for you to judge yourself. So I need you to understand that while we're going through this podcast, it's not for you to be like, oh my God, why am I doing that? And okay, that's not going to serve you. Now that's victim mentality in itself. Now you have victim mentality about victim mentality. We're not going to do that. But I want to give it to you so you can kind of be aware, because sometimes we're not self-aware. And don't worry about making other people self-aware. That's their job. That's why it's called self-aware, right? And so I want to tell you why you want to switch those. And we're going to go through 5 different ways that you can, and where you want to start. In those 5 journals, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, you want to go out to the YouTube, the Positivity Experience, go under playlist, look at the 5 journal series. It will be extremely helpful because it helps you unbox all of these sort of things that are going on. And I have a podcast that I'm going to do to explain them all over again, just so you have it kind of like on loop here. So I want to talk to you a little bit about because people say, well, God, I'm in a victim mentality. I guess it's going to last forever. Well, I mean, it could feel that way. You could feel like you're in that deep, dark tunnel and you feel like, oh my God, all of these things happen. And, it's kind of like if you say, I've been looking for a job, I can't find one. I guess, you know what? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to happen. I don't know what I can do. There's nothing I can improve on. People just don't love me. That's a victim mentality. Well, look at this. Everybody else has friends. Must be nice. I don't have any friends. I don't want friends. Victim mentality. Well, why did this happen in my childhood? It sucks. I didn't ask for this. Well, that's valid, but that's true. But if you live there, you're not in acceptance. You're re-traumatizing yourself. That mentality relives the suffering. You're reliving the suffering by not releasing the mindset, by not accepting that things are what they are. And I mean, sorry, but that's just as it is. It may sound cold and callous to say, well, it is what it is, but it is. You can't define it as anything else, right? Because one of the most common things that people who are in a victim mentality do is self-sabotage. And of course, negative thinking. Everything is like glass half empty. This will never happen. This will always happen. Always these big words. And here's the beautiful thing. That's a learned behavior. Yep. Because if you were a victim, you don't have to always be the victim. You can be the victor or you can re-traumatize yourself. Okay. So again, I say this to you, and hey, this is going to come in pretty hot and pretty harsh. That's why I'm saying do not judge yourself. This isn't to make you feel bad. This isn't to say that your trauma is not real. It most certainly is. Mine sure was. But it's how you're responding to it. And see, how do you know? So let's talk about some areas that you know. The list is endless, so we won't be here all day, but I will give you some, right? One, you're blaming everybody else. No, this is everybody's fault that here I am. Yep. This is it. Yep. This is all has to do with them. Yep. They shouldn't have done this. This is what, okay. And maybe there's a level of truth to that, but are you going to live there? Are you going to live there and sit in blame? So if you're doing that, now you know what that is. And yes, you absolutely didn't deserve it. You absolutely deserve to give yourself empathy and compassion. But you give that to you. Do you hear what I just said? You give the empathy and compassion to yourself. Stop waiting for everybody else to give that to you. That goes into the relationship thing that I'm talking about on the other podcast, that's why you stay in these unhealthy relationships, right? Because you're sitting there and you're waiting for someone to give you this compassion, waiting for someone to make it better because you had this trauma, make you, oh my God, I feel so sorry for you. No, you don't want that. So if you're blaming other people for how your life is going, yes, that's definitely a sign. Okay. Or if it's like, oh, this never happens for me. This always happens. That all or nothing thinking. Absolutely. Okay. You have a plan, but when the plan goes awry, you literally spiral out of control. Like you're like, I don't know how to cope with this. I have no idea how to cope with this. Well, yeah, that's a sign too. Obviously, if you're negative on a regular basis. And here's a big one, and this is the one I think people have a lot of problems with, is you want the people who have wronged you to recognize that what they've done to you was wrong. You're waiting for this moment for them to go, I am so sorry I did that to you. I am so sorry. Well, yes, but you know what? And I had a client of mine who had something like, it's not a comparison, but had something massively tragic happen. And said that when they let go of that need, they felt so much more power. And then later on down the road, a person did acknowledge it. And they said, you know what? It was just it didn't do anything for me. I thought, and it's funny because they said, I was waiting on this for so long in my life that when I got it, it was kind of anticlimactic. It was kind of like, oh, I kind of thought I'd feel better. But I felt better because I didn't need that. And I was like, oh my God, that's powerful. So let me explain that. And again, they went through something really awful, like 90% of the people here listening. And they literally said that when they realized that they no longer needed that, they realized how much power they had. So that went from being the victim to the victor, right? But they have to be that. And one of the things that they also said to me was like, when I let go of thinking that people owed it to me to be supportive of me. I didn't say you don't like it. I didn't say it's not great to have. Of course it is. But if you're banking everything on external stuff, you're going to live in that state of mind. Right? And of course, we know that comes with low self-esteem, low confidence, and that is absolutely part of that mentality. And I have a podcast coming out on that for you too. But, so just kind of know that that's kind of like absolutely normal. But then when you go into a little bit of that entitlement, right? Because your ego comes into play and you want everybody else to sort of recognize that you were a victim. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Even if it's a subconscious thing. Because of course, like 95% of our body and our mind and everything, our lives are going off of our subconscious anyway, right? That's why mindfulness is a key to not just good mental health. It's good physical health. It's a good practice. And, so you got to keep in mind that you don't need that apology and what you think you're going to get from that apology to do what? Prove you right? Now what? Oh, good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. You took ownership. Yeah. Okay. Now what? Now what? Now, are they supposed to be the martyr? Are they supposed to sit there and like make this up to you now for the rest of your life? No. That goes into that all or nothing thinking. And you know what's funny? You can check yourself on this too, is if you're lacking empathy, and I didn't mean sympathy and taking on their stuff, empathy of just understanding where somebody else is and you judge it, or you go, well, I had that problem. Like suddenly you're in your brain, it's a comparison. Well, I don't know why you're acting like that. Mine was way worse than yours. What game are you trying to win? You can win the game. It doesn't matter the level of trauma that people have. It's very real within yourself. Because if you sit there and you're constant in rumination, coulda, shoulda, woulda, why didn't this happen? Yes, it's attributed to OCD. Yes, it's attributed to anxieties, depressions, of course. But it's also part of that mindset because it's a mentality. This isn't inherited. You didn't inherit a victim mentality from mommy and daddy. No. Now, they might have been one, but you didn't inherit that. That's a learned behavior. And honestly, if you're constantly feeling like, what if something bad's happened? What if something bad's going to happen? You're constantly thinking on that. You're hypervigilant in it. Yep, that's part of it too. And so you have to, and feelings as though you can't fail or you can't have mistakes. And, you constantly feel helpless and, you're in that catastrophic thinking, and here's a big one. You start comparing yourself to everybody. Well, they have it. Do you know their journey? Well, God, they look like they really have it together. Did you know what they went through to get there? Or are you just looking at it in some weird state of comparison? And yes, that is part of that mentality and that behavior for it. And see, here's the thing. Until you take responsibility for your own life, your own mentality, your own everything, until you take accountability for your life now, you will remain in that space. You will. Okay. And so you have to get very clear in that this validation and everything that you need is for yourself. And you can say, yes, I was in that trauma. Yes, it sucks. But are you going to keep living it? Are you going to keep saying, why me, why me, why me? And the why me is a big one. The question is, why not you? I mean, seriously, why me? Well, why not you? That was the biggest one for me on my journey. I think because I used to say, why is this happening to me? Why can't I have a mom that wasn't sick? Why is my dad an alcoholic? Why is this? Why me? And I remember I was talking to somebody, and I want to say it might have been a professor, and he said, or scientist or somebody, and they said, and I kept saying, why me? And they literally looked me straight in my face and said, well, why not you? And I said, because it sucks. Yeah. But why should you be spared that? And I was like, because. I mean, that was literally, I was like, because. And it's like, go deeper with that. And I was like, well, because it's not fair. Oh, you're going through the fairness and justice. Life in general is not always going to be fair and just. And I was like, okay. So I said, so again, why not you? And I said, because I don't like it. Okay. So now you're being a brat. And I was like, what? So yeah, you're being a brat. You're not understanding that you're learning something from this. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm learning that it's a complete nightmare. It's like, nah, you got to go past that. And that's why I do what I do now. And it was so funny because I talked to them not terribly long ago, a couple years back. And I kind of went with my tail between my legs. I was like, okay, you're right. You're right. And he's like, yeah, I know. I was like, yeah, you're right. And it was so funny because when you take ownership of it, it just feels so much better. And think of this. If you feel so much better when people go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so this. Then you know that that's what you're experiencing. I didn't say support. I didn't say, oh man, I'm really sorry. Let me help you through it. Or what do you need from me? I mean, where you just want to be in that space of sadness. And I see this so much with people who have lost people. And I say this a lot in my grief counseling. If you and your two sisters are super close to your grandparents or your mom or whomever else and they pass, and your one sister has a cruise plan for next week and she goes, she's not wrong. If you're sitting in judgment and going, I can't believe she went. Our mother just died and she is on a cruise and she can do whatever she wants to do. She doesn't love mom any less than you. You don't get any special bells and whistles and go, I loved her so much more. Look at me. I'm putting my life on hold. And what does that do? My sister was that way with my mother and she lived a very lonely life. Anytime she called, I would just have to send her directly to voicemail. Every now and again, if we were talking about a sale or something really high level, the weather, whatever, fine. The moment you start, I can't believe mom's gone. I got to go. Bye. I'm not going to engage with you because it's not like she wanted to get help out of it. You understand what I'm saying? If she wanted to help out of it, and she was really working on it, then of course I'm going to sit there. We're going to talk about it. Why are you holding on to it? Blah, blah, blah. But if you just want to sit there and be miserable, it can be extremely lonely. And I'm not saying that to have you judge yourself. I'm saying that out of awareness so you can start to process what these feelings are. Because if you're always like glass half empty, or if you're always angry, you're always defensive, right? You feel entitled. These are all the attitudes that come with that. Okay. Or I'm not going to look for the solution. I'm going to look for the problem. You're afraid, you got to wait to feel ready. You're afraid to jump out the plane. What if I don't have a parachute? Yeah, but what if you do? What if I fail? What if you fly? You know, and it's like, and keep in mind, you can kind of learn helplessness by various situations. And a lot of times when you go to doctors, let's say you're going to a therapist or a regular doctor, and a doctor kind of not dismisses you in your brain. They're kind of like, okay, kind of like my doctors did. Like, okay, well, you're not new here. You're not reinventing the wheel. And, you feel, offended. Wait, do they not understand? All of a sudden you feel like, well, yeah, I know everybody goes through stuff, but my stuff was like really bad. Okay, well, why are we trying to win a competition? Again, what game are you trying to win? Right? And again, if you're constantly in that belief system of everything negative is going to happen, all or nothing, nobody cares. No, and this is a big one. Well, no one has a heart like me. No one is that caring like me. Oh my God, stop. Stop it. Stop. If you can't have that radical acceptance, then that's a problem. And this is where that mindset comes in, is part of a coping mechanism. Okay, so understand where this comes from. You have no self-control, so it becomes a coping mechanism. If I'm prepared for the negative, I know that now this is not true, but in your mind, you're telling yourself, oh yeah, I can control this. You can't. This is a negative coping strategy. Guilt, shame, no, that's part of a victim mentality. Oh, the world's not fair. Victim mentality. And like if other people are doing really well and you have resentment and all that stuff, that's still part of that mentality. Feeling lonely, believe it or not, is still part of that mentality. Yes, there are other mental things that come into play to make it more of a struggle, but I'm telling you where the rooted issues are. So yes, you talk to your doctor about it. It might be a little harder for you. It might be a little bit more difficult for you to start changing those coping strategies, but you are capable of doing so. And so if you're doing self-destructive behavior, which your girl did, I was drinking and driving on a regular basis. I did not care. Woo, caution to the wind, baby. Just did not care because I had no self-love, right? The victim mentality starts to disappear a lot when you start practicing your self-love. And also if you find the people who are always like into drama, doom scrolling is part of that too. Believe it or not, like where you're just looking for something negative, right? So how do you stop that? What do you do? So let's talk a little bit out of it. Okay. Number 1, accept the situation or exit it. Listen, you can either accept it. That's radical acceptance, baby. Or you can say, this isn't serving me and I got to get out of it. There's not many areas that I would say there's not a gray area, but this is one. There is no other choice. What are you going to sit around and wait? Then you're staying in that mentality. If a situation, that's what I tell people all the time. If you are at work, right? Let's say you're working and you feel that you do now some of it is a victim mentality. You do everything, everybody else gets away from everything. And you and I talk and I say, okay, well then anywhere you go, there you are. So grass isn't always greener, but if it's still very problematic, then you want to look for a different job. Like, okay, well, why do I have to leave? Well, you're the one with the problem. Okay. The entitlement goes with victim mentality. You're not entitled to something. Stop it. Right? So you have to decide, are you going to accept things as they are? Because if you don't, they don't change. If I have Dr. Pepper and you hate Dr. Pepper and I'm drinking Dr. Pepper, that Dr. Pepper is not changing. I'm not changing it for you. I'm enjoying it. I don't care what you think about it. Neither does that. So you not accepting it is a you thing to process. So number 1 is getting very clear with that radical acceptance, and having these 5 journals is going to be extremely helpful for you. And because you can process that in the negative journal. Okay. I'm all about mindfulness. I am a mindful expert, reading books like, I love Eckhart Tolle. I love different things to maintain, meditations, things like that. So we know that that's a tool, but it's also a mindset. So your number 1 is to ask yourself, what is it that you keep failing to accept? It's not changing. No one's losing sleep over this. Everybody's out living their best life, whatever that version is for themselves. They're not changing it because you're upset with it or because you refuse to accept it. So you have to go into the ego piece of you and you have to say, what is your biggest concern of not doing it? And then you have to be willing to say, I can't change something or someone, but I can change how I react to it. So that's number one. You can accept it or you can leave the situation. Okay? And yes, that's the thing. Number two, and it's a big one. You ain't gonna like it and it doesn't matter. You got to forgive yourself and other people. Yep. I didn't say you have to forgive them and then just go back and just live life with that person and be toxic. No. I promise you that sometimes that apology that you're seeking isn't going to help you nearly as much as you think it is. I promise you that. I promise you that. It might feel good and you might be like, okay, well, that was kind of flat. Like, now what? Because you bank so much time waiting on this because you know you'll probably never get it. So it's this way that you cannot deal with your stuff. If I keep waiting for this apology that I know I'm probably not going to get, I can still hold a grudge. That's right. I don't have to forgive them or myself. If you can't forgive you, why should somebody else love you? Seriously. They're going to love you, but then you wouldn't even believe them anyway because you don't love yourself. If you can't forget, listen, you messed up. Okay. Somebody treated you really bad. Yes, and it sucks. We are here now. You holding out this grudge and this resentment is not benefiting you, not even a quarter of an ounce, because it's not giving you the space to be able to hold yourself like compassion. Right? Because then you start going through all of those things where you're constantly in that space of feeling negative, constantly in that space of woe is me, right? So we got to be careful of that. Okay? Now, here's the thing. The best way to start getting out of that is look at yourself and say, what am I in control of? What are you in control of? You're not in control of what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, maybe getting your clothes ready, doing the parts that you can do. So you focus on what you can control versus what you can't control. You can't control another human being. You can't control things that are or not going to happen, but you can control your response to it. So if you know that getting up on Monday and feeling unprepared for work is stressful for you, then you do something about it. You lay out your clothes, you iron if you're an ironer, you go to the store, you have a plan, you don't just kind of wing it all the time. Yeah. That's how you do it. But the one way to get out of that victim mentality that is so effective is to look and say, what am I in control of? You're in control of doing those 5 journals. You're in control of doing your mantras. You're in control of eating a salad. You're in control of eating chips. It doesn't matter, but you're in control of it. So one of the biggest things and the biggest gifts that you can give yourself, is the acceptance, acceptance that you can only control you, your mindset, and your reactions and responses, I guess. But that's it. You can't control just because you will somebody, you just want your adult children to do what it is that you want them to do. That's fine. But now you're in your ego. An adult child can do whatever they want to do. It's not an extension of you. A victim mentality mindset is thinking these children are an extension of me. And what I mean, I don't mean an extension like they're not like connected to you. I mean, if they go out in the world and they do something really bad, stop making it seem, why is it about you? Well, oh my God, they're going to look at my parenting. Oh, now we're going into, that's not self-love. Because people are individuals. They have a way of living their own life, whether you like it or not. And that's a big one for you. So instead of looking at all of these things that are out of your control, that's never going to happen, I can never do this, I can always do this, and stop spending, this is kind of like not really part of the 5, but it's a part of a regular part of life, which goes into the next topic next week of emotional intelligence, which is like one of my favorite topics, is stop scrolling all day long. Stop it. Last year I was doing 45 minutes to an hour. This year I'm doing 30 at best, 30. Not just to post content or to respond to questions. I'm saying of unnecessary scrolling. It doesn't do anything for me. I might do it like 5 or 10 minutes, look at a new recipe. I love dog videos, cat videos. It's nice. It makes me feel good. Do that for a few minutes and then I'm done. Like it's fine. I don't need to be on there to compare myself or to do all, it's not important. And that does go into, asking yourself, what are you surrounding yourself with? If you're surrounding yourself with toxicity, it's going to be really hard to see your way out of it, right? So you have to take responsibility in who you're spending your time with, what you're spending your time watching and observing, right? If you're constantly just watching drama, then you're going to feel drama, or you're doing it to make yourself feel better about yourself. And sometimes you just have like mindless housewives on, right? I'm friends with some of the housewives. It's like, they're just on. Like I'm crocheting. I'm not really paying attention. Just in the background, I might look up. What are they wearing? Oh my God, that's funny. And whatever. Of course, I'm sitting there analyzing going, oh my God, somebody needs therapy. You know what I mean? So, you have that. That's fine. But just don't sit there and surround yourself with a bunch of negative people. When you're negative, you will go towards negative people because you want other people to feel, right. So you want to feel valid with all of these other people. Go, that's right. It's all them. Look at that. It's all them. You know how bad they are. And then you're like, yeah, they are. Yeah. You're not seeking that. That's why, that's why you go from doctor to doctor, because you want somebody to tell you you're right. You want somebody to tell you this is what it is. No. You have to get clear in what and who you're spending your time with. And this includes you saying no. This is where those boundaries come into play, and accepting other people's boundaries. I think you guys know I'm a big, hey, I'm not people in today thing. If there's certain things that are my personal time is very valuable to me. I don't always want to be around people. I didn't say never. I said I don't always want to be around people because I know if I'm running a little bit lower on my gas, my energy, I don't want to drain it by having to give my energy to somebody else. It's not selfish. That's called self-love. And I respect the same in return, for them. But I know who I'm going to surround myself with. I'm not going to surround myself with somebody who's just constantly like, but I don't know. I feel like my feelings get hurt all the time. Listen, me not peopling has nothing to do with you. Nothing at all. You know what I mean? If you're taking that is not my responsibility to do, and vice versa. So you have to be clear on what you're spending your time with, what you can control. What goals do you have? You can control at least setting that up. And it's like, the opposite of victim mindset is self-care and self-love. And do you want to know what's really funny? Do you know who is the biggest victim? Narcissistic personality disorder. Yep. That is a huge, now I'm not saying because you're a mindset like that all of a sudden you're narcissistic. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when people say, well, narcissists seem to really have it together, they are super insecure. There's a big level of insecurity there, huge level. Now, if you're talking to somebody, you see somebody and they're constantly negative, be empathetic. You can say, yeah, that was really bad. You don't have to judge them. You don't have to do all of that. Don't shift blame. Don't do all of that, and let them talk if they want to talk, but they don't have to, and going back to that NPD, there's so many reasons why narcissists play the victim. Because again, that's all part of the game of getting you wrapped up into, oh my God, it must be my fault, right? That's all part of the plan. Okay. That's part of the plan. But so you have to realize if you're constantly only in a problem and you're not seeking a solution, if there is one, and if there isn't one, you accept that there is not one. But if you're feeling powerless that you have to do that, that's how you know what's going on. Okay, self-confidence is only going to come from doing the things that are uncomfortable and doing things that you're going to do, even if you don't feel like doing them. If you're constantly in frustration, I don't mean your normal frustration. If you're constantly angry, resentment, having all of these regrets, you're in that mentality. And I think, some people call it as the poor me syndrome. That's used to be what it's called. It's kind of in that area. And then it's also where you're oh my God, well, I guess things are just going to happen as they will. It's almost like you give up on yourself. And I think, for you have to understand that can really affect your relationships. Because if you're in that space, you're going to expect your next partner to pick up the slack, to let you know that it's okay. That's not their job. That's not your job at all. So if you're seeing somebody and they're like refusing to take responsibility for anything whatsoever, blaming everybody, getting angry if they're confronted, what's happening. That's called a victim narcissist. And believe it or not, there's the other side of this too, where you think you're coming from a good place and being a martyr. You're like, oh my God, I'm a martyr. I am going to victimize myself somehow. Like, oh my God, I'm going to put everything aside and I'm going to help this other person. You're always sacrificing anything that you do to yourself. You're taking on this role of this big hero. You're like, yes, here I am. Yeah, no, that's not your job. No, that's not your job. But again, don't blame your parents. Don't be like, well, this is just genetic. No, it's not genetic. Let me help you there. It's not genetic, which is beautiful. That means that you don't have to deal with it. You don't have to cope with it. Right? So it's like I said, you have to be careful, because if you see that you're going down that self-pity where you're in that all the time, it's really emphasizing based in your ego. It's like you're exaggerating the extent of your personal suffering. Sorry, but it's reality. Now, if you have self-compassion, you're able to see, man, this really sucks. I am going to reparent myself, right? I'm going to reparent myself. I'm going to give myself what I didn't have. Yeah, it sucks. I'm going to process how hurt I am that this happened, but I'm going to look for what that solution is. And those are the areas that you can start working in. Okay. So, and again, stop thinking that you need to be a martyr. Like, if somebody is, let's say you're dating somebody and they're in a victim mindset, but listen, you can listen to them. You don't have to agree with them, by the way. Stop it. You're not doing anybody any favors by constantly agreeing and coddling them. Now, if they say to you, hey, and you can kind of feel it draining on you, you can say, hey, listen, I know that what you're experiencing, don't say I know, just say, I hear you, and I know that what you're experiencing is very traumatic, but, you want to point that out to them in a kind way. Don't do it in hostility. And again, if you're not trained in this, you just kind of stay out of it, but, you help them take responsibility of the things that they can do. It's not, and you'll find the people who go defensive and go, well, what do you mean? Now you're blaming me? Now you're victim blaming me. And that's a victim mentality in itself. Now, yes, if you are victim blaming somebody, that's a you issue to deal with. But just because you're and when I say calling out, pointing out, and you're helping them in a good way, and they go off they go way left with it, that's a them issue. And then you pull back of it. Okay. You pull back from that. Because it's not helping you and it's not helping them. So now you really understand how many areas that I think most of us, at least at some point, if not most of the time, live in this sense of victimization. And when you're doing that, you are re-traumatizing yourself. It's very real. And you know what? You can't always get 3 books, read it, and feel better. No, you got to be willing to face it. You got to be willing to release the hold that you have given this, the power that you have given this. And that means it might be isolating for a while. You got to be willing to say, let me look at what I'm surrounding myself with. What am I consuming? What am I watching on social media? What am I watching? Who am I surrounding myself with in real life? What am I doing to benefit myself? What am I doing to show myself? And you're never especially if you're in a really bad mindset, you're never going to think that you deserve it, but that's just going to be, it's going to have to come. Okay. But you got to do the work. No one's going to do it for you. And no one owes that to you because you have had something go on. People can be empathetic, but wallowing in it and having you sit and stew in it is not serving you any purpose whatsoever. So those are 5 areas that you can start working on. Be kind to yourself, be empathetic. Don't judge yourself. Don't be like, oh my God, I'm terrible. Why do I do this? Well, because you haven't had the tools. That's what we're working on now. If I ask you to go fix a car, I'll show you how to do it. And I just throw tools at you and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do with this. Well, then of course you're not going to be able to fix the car. Chill out with the positive. Chill out with this mindset that you have to be perfect. You're not going to be. And it's okay to go backwards in time and you're going to fall back, but you're going to have more tools. So it's not going to last and linger as long. So that's your homework. right? Be gentle with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, but be aware of what you're doing. It's not judgment, it's awareness. Check it out.